Hello, everyone. This is Dwayne Monroe, and I'm here once again with Brother Alkmi for Structured Dialogue 6 here on the Dialectical House Party with Brother Alkmi. And for those who are unfamiliar, what we do in these conversations is Alkmi presents some key concepts from materialist dialectics and dialectical materialism, and we'll explain what the difference is between the two, theory and practice, as we go along. There is a presentation that's in the show notes that people can refer to go along with what we're doing here. And the goal here is to take something that seems academic, esoteric, disconnected from our life, and apply it to real world situations. We are taught in our world, our Westoid world, that we should train our bodies. Everyone wants to run 1,000,000 miles, do Pilates, do yoga, don't eat sugar, stop drinking, yada, yada, yada. But no one says, hey, you know what? You need to train your mind. There is a version of this under capitalism, which is corporate mindfulness. Meditate so that you can, I don't know, attend meetings better, perhaps. Well, here...
Don't go to a Palestine rally, though. Don't go to that. Just
don't do that. Our goal here is to go beyond that and to apply not simply the dialectical approach of Marxism in a general sense, but the specific approach of the Vietnamese school of Marxism-Leninism. Dialectics, as an aspect of nature and as an area of mental practice, predates, of course, Marxism, predates the nation states that we contend with today by millennia. Indeed, by billions of years, because it's an aspect of nature herself, right? But what our Vietnamese cousins have done, what they have gifted us with, and what Luna in her translation has done, and what Brother Alkmi is doing, and what I'm striving to do in my own way, is to bring what we consider to be, there you go, there's a copy of the book, by the way, link in the show notes. What we're striving to do is to bring this approach to our world, which is assaulted with, how would I put this? We are distracted away from thinking clearly, from thinking logically, and also for being able to see what's happening in our world and think about our lives in a coherent way. We are discouraged, we are propagandized out of that. And so we're propagandized into being reactionary, into thinking only of our, physical state or our mental state. We're trying to help give us the tools, to provide the tools, and show a better path. So, having said that, as an introduction, I now turn the mic over to you, Brother Alkmi, to take us forward. And from the slide deck, we left off at, was it slide 44, was it? I believe.
reason and result pair.
The reason and result pair. And by the way, audience, I'm talking this out because as I talk, I'm actually scrolling through the deck, but doesn't matter because
Future Dwayne will do this.
Yes, you'll see it on the screen as I talk, and reason result. So having said that, Brother Alkmi, please take the mic.
All right, come Sunday, I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure and a gift and a privilege to be here with you, our audience. So thank you for the time as always. Haisai, annyeonghaseyo, everyone. You guys already know me. If you don't, I'll give you maybe a 7 bullet point rundown of what we're here to do, what I am, who I am, what this is all about. I'm a Okinawan Korean Japanese diaspora. I am a student of decolonial Marxism lens. I'm just a humble customer service worker with a pre-med science psychology background. So I'm a science guy, found his way into Marxism. I'm just a student of all of this, just like you. You guys are much smarter than me, more praxeologically advanced and experienced than me. I'm just here to help share my love for specifically the Vietnamese and a little bit of touch of the Chinese, Black radical tradition in Soviet Union style too, of the corpus of knowledge that we call materialist dialectics, specifically Marxist-Leninist kind. If you are a revolutionary nationalist or an anarchist or a revolutionary leftist of any kind, this is for you as well. I'm not a sectarian. This is for anyone who wants to understand. These are our thought tools, and indeed our war instruments. These are what these concept categories and laws are that this knowledge system. These are thought tools that help us combat false consciousness, white supremacy, basically all the superstructural aspects of what the European settler colonial, North Atlantic, imperial, white supremacist, Americo-European project, 500-year-long global domination, has done to our minds and our culture and our critical faculty. These are the tools our revolutionary ancestors, from Huey P. Newton to Kwame Nkrumah, to Ho Chi Minh, Mao Zedong, Cabral, and like Comrade Duane said, long into deep time itself of the laws of motion of nature that we've been gifted to help undo this, combat this kind of false thing that capitalism and imperialism have done. So what materialist dialectics actually is, I'll give you guys maybe 7 points of what this all is. Materialist dialectics is a methodology of dialectical. It's a philosophy that's the backbone of scientific socialism that says that everything in the universe is matter, or is objective existence that is independent. And human consciousness is just a type of matter, a specific form of matter that can dynamically reflect matter. That's dialectical materialism. Materialist dialectics, you all, in the Vietnamese Marxist-Leninist canon, is a specific subfield of that. It's just a set of concepts, principles, laws, and categories that are knowledge systems that are used to analyze anything in human nature, society, or thought in order to assist you in transforming anything, any process or system in human society, thought. So at its core, it's what Karl Marx and our buddy Frederick Engels called a Wissenschaft. In the not American English iteration of this word, it's a science or knowledge system. That's all it is. It's just in some ways of speaking, it's just a set of a list of rule of thumb that you can use in any situation to help you navigate and to help you ultimately increase your agency in any situation, your ability to analyze and act. We're not going to be going over the full corpus. That's what our previous episodes in Dialectical House Party and our structured conversations are for. As I always say, you guys who watch me often, this is a meme at this point. There's no time to get into all of it. You can start from ground one in your own time if you wish on a lot of my appearances on Saturdays with Renee on our wonderful Black Liberation Media collective, run by the wonderful and brilliant Renee Johnston and Dr. Jared A. Ball. There's about 4 of those out now that I think I've been invited on to talk about materialist dialectics. Our comrade Benji Schoendorf, anti-imperialist clinical psychologist, an RFT practitioner, relational frame theory practitioner and theorist, has a mini podcast with me on his podcast and resistance media project called Resistance is Fertile, and our micro series where I explicate a lot of these concepts in further depth and from a 101 level is called Dialectical Standard. Go check him out on Substack. RIP to RIF. They got nuked off of YouTube, I think, once, twice, and now they're kind of on their third go. So shout out to comrades Amy, Indy, and Benji. Go check that out, audience, if you need a ground up approach and perspective. And go check out me and comrade Dwayne's previous conversations on this channel. Hopefully, it'll be of some use to you and some utility. That being said, this is a knowledge system given to us by our Vietnamese comrades. This is not just for Marxists. This is for anarchists, and this is for revolutionary now. Help change the world. These are concepts and laws that can be applied to any system or process in nature, society, or thought. And ultimately, what me and Dwayne are going to do is, in addition to what he said about helping us learn how to apply these concepts to the world to help us resolve contradictions that face us, the globalized, colonized proletariat, we're also going to help you suss out the definitions and essentially the operationalizable understandings and concepts. So yes, we will apply these to the real world, but I've noticed a lot of people in our Marxist-Leninist, anti-imperialist left sphere might have the proper politics and the passion and indeed be possessed by the right set of principles and morals, right? But not everyone in our Marxist-Leninist or anti-imperialist sphere, especially in the West, you guys, has a proper and uniform level of understanding of how to use these thought tools that are traditional. So it's great to be righteously indignant for all those who are being oppressed and whose lives are being ruined by capitalism. But it's not adequate if you don't have a set of tools that help you perceive the problems in this very complex system and help navigate a way to resolve these problems, right, out of the current state that we're in. I don't mean the kind of state that anarchists don't. I mean the phase of the world's development, which is basically ecocidal, whole-scale, comprehensive climate collapse, and massive white supremacist, late-stage, U.S.-dominated financial imperialism. These things cannot be defeated easily, but they can be defeated. The Vietnamese, the Chinese, Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, and the Cubanos, and the Venezuelanos in Nicaragua. They taught us there is a way out of capitalism. It's through scientific socialism, and this is the methodology of science. Any questions before we get started?
I wanted to make a note that the great Kwame Ture once said that people, in response to their oppression, become mobilized before they become organized, right? And the mobilization is the emotional reaction, to being um, abused, So, for example, the response to ICE in Minnesota started with people just being outraged, but then over time and relatively rapidly, people organized themselves, to come up with strategies to interfere with ICE operations in Minnesota, and going even further, that there's situations in which people even go to the next level of military response, but that takes time. But that starts with the emotional reaction. Before we started recording, you were talking about hot and cold, right? That the cold is the
Cold stream, warm
ruthless.
stream of Marxism.
Yeah, cold. I love this, the cold stream, warm stream, because of course the cold stream is that you have to, in almost a Spock-like fashion, look at the facts and apply an analysis. But that also requires the warm stream, which is that it's the love of your fellow humanity, and
Animating
the
emotion and passion in the Ubuntu,
exactly
in the
that
shared
that
thing.
children should not be murdered, right? People should be able to live in peace. And those who prevent that from happening deserve your anger, your sense of vengeance, even. When there was the funeral for the supreme leader of Iran, and people brought out the flag of vengeance, right? Well, it was appropriate. It was appropriate for them to do that, like saying, listen, this outrage and all the other outrages, in addition to the outrages against the Palestinians and just the outrages globally, they require vengeance, but that requires a plan.
Mhm. This is what that plan is. This is a general plan. This is not a plan for Iran. This is not a plan for Palestine or the new African colony or Native American internally colonized sovereign nation. This is not a plan for any of those, you guys. This is more general. This is a plan for how which to construct all the plans that our reality needs to be changed by and need to start from. So our plans to liberate ourselves have to be based on the scientific conscience. These are the ways to force yourself to think and analyze it. And, we'll get right into reason and result, but the last point I was going to make was I didn't really define the whole goddamn thing for you. In a nutshell, materialist dialectics, in addition to all that, it's a knowledge system, it's the methodology, dialectics, materialism. It's a scientific philosophy. It is a way to analyze anything in nature, society, and thought. In the words of Engels, Marx, and a lot of our Vietnamese revolutionaries, these are my favorite ways to describe this. It's beautiful inheritance we found. It's the science of contradiction. It's the science of the universal relation. It's just the science of mutual impacts, or it's the science of development. Or my favorite one, you guys. Materialist dialectics is essentially the study or the science of the laws of change and how to use the laws of change to get the change you want. Because the reactionaries and the capitalists, they want you to be against change, or they want you to think change happens on their time, externally, not through internal contradiction. It's not class struggle. To quote Emil Cabral, that's only what drives history forward. This is for all you Marxist nerds, for all you who aren't, tune out for 10 seconds. We'll come back in a little bit. History is driven forward by the mode of production and its struggle against its productive forces and relations. This is historical materialism. History is only driven by class struggle when it enters the phase where classism. With a lot of us brown people, Okinawans, Cubans, New Africans, like Dwayne's people, we didn't get capitalism attached to this. It was forced on us. So the motive force of history currently is the masses, the colonized proletariat of the third world, of course, but it's class struggle. But any Marxist worth their grain of salt should understand the deeper methodology underlining that is not class struggle drives it. Class struggle only drives a particular segment of history at a particular conjuncture after a particular set of things happen, called the European domination of the globe, right? The real motive force of class history, of history, you guys, is the productive force. That's what Emil Cabral said. This set of knowledge that we have is how to analyze anything like what I just find its motive, driving, operating engine of change, and strip away all of the phenomenon on the surface to understand why a thing moves and where it's moving. That's also what this is. So, Comrade Dwayne and audience, we're starting on slide future Dwayne, 44. We're going to get right into the reason and result pair. Again, please go watch my previous videos and on Saturdays with Renee and Black Liberation Media, this channel, Dialectical House Party, and Benji Show endorse resistance for tiles, dialectical. This will explicate a lot more of what we're leaving out today and greater for you all that wish to imbibe in these aspects of this knowledge. So we'll start off right where we left off last time, Comrade Dwayne, being a respectful view and your family's time as well. We were talking about reason result, and I said, Comrade Dwayne, you're actually pretty apt at this already in your analysis. This is the dialectic in broad strokes. This is just my first pass. We'll get into the types of reasons and results, just to give you a little telly on me. And we'll go right into particular in general. We won't spend too long on this. We'll just hit what we didn't hit last time. Audience, this is basically the dialectical materialist version of cosmos. Unlike metaphysical and idealist and formal logic and the white Western European philosophical traditions of cosmic effect, materialist dialectic says one cause can have many effects. One effect can have many causes. And causes and effects can have many of each other branching. Right. We call it reason and result partially for translation reasons, but partially, I think, pedagogically, it's a lot better to differentiate causality from the Western. In dialectical materialism, Comrade Dwayne, a reason or the cause of something is just a mutual impact that are not the same. It's an interaction where two things get affected by contact of some kind, of some relational. The effect of a mutual impact, the result category in our materialist dialectical definition and tradition, is just any change or transformation or motion, any change produced by a mutual impact. The most important thing the Vietnamese want us to understand is that reasons and results are infinite, just like development, contradiction, change. Every time a change occurs from a mutual impact between two things, that change, that result, will go on to have new mutual impact with further results transform into reason. And every reason, everything that was mutual impact in this universe, from your life to politics to this conversation we're having right now, was previously a result, change, caused by previous mutual impact, previous set of. So right off the bat, Comrade Dwayne, this is the relational way to understand reason, cause and effect. Relational. Causes and effects are not causes and effects the way the white man taught you. They are two things. It's always a pair of two things mutually touching each other, interacting with each other, impacting each other. And a transformation or any change or motion that results in all parties due to the impact from said impact. That's effect or result. That's the dialectical materialist understanding of how to use relationships to understand why things happen. Relationships are basically the source of all changes in the universe. To change, you need two. What are your initial thoughts right off the bat, Comrade, about this category? Here.
It's very scientific, isn't it? Because even though, in, how would I put this, everyday life, people think of cause and effect as being something quite simple, such as, there was a banana. I think I mentioned this previously. I'm walking through the, the parking lot of a store to get to my car. There's a banana peel. I slip, I fall, and maybe I'm significantly injured, or maybe I'm just lightly annoyed, but there's a cause and effect. However, what you're saying is that, there are other interactions occurring that brought that about. And also, it's not simply a matter of you slipped. Also, there's gravity. Also, there's other things that go into the creation of that, of what we would call an effect or the result that we see of me hitting the ground. But we can also take a look at this. Like really good screenwriters, for example, often use reason result in their screenplays when they show multiple things happening that people who are impacted are not aware of. And then there's a result. But the reasons, of course, are indeed mutual impacts, right? People, I've talked about The Wire and shows like this, right? And of course, what those screenwriters, or what was the program that everyone was crazy about years ago, Breaking Bad, these kinds of programs. Vince Gilligan, who was the writer of that, he was quite good at showing mutual impacts, right? And then the consequence of those mutual impacts, and also making in this fictional world them sort of mirror how events unfold in real life, in which the results that we see, have these multitudinous reasons, these complicated reasons that are hidden from view, unless we can, have a 10,000 meter view, or have insight into an entire
Which
chain.
is another way of saying being able to scientifically abstract the internal
Exactly,
relationships out of the
precisely,
laws of motion of something.
precisely.
Scientific abstraction.
I Another thing that comes to mind is that there's a documentary. No, it's a drama, apparently on Chinese television, about the creation of the Chinese atomic bomb.
Oh, that's awesome.
And on social media, people were comparing it to Oppenheimer. Now, in Oppenheimer, of course, and let's go back to reason result. In Oppenheimer, it's yes, there's the depiction of all the scientists, and of course of the hero scientists, because it's Christopher Nolan. There's always a hero white man, but and all of that. But essentially, there is not much actual description of the scientific process, the natural process, or the coaxed natural process that produced a fission result, right? Whereas in the Chinese production, there are multiple scenes of the scientists talking about the movement of neutrons and alpha particles and fission and so forth, right? So the characters were describing to the audience the reason
The
result
mutual impacts that lead to the changes
and the
that led to
mutual
the
impacts,
developing bomb.
precisely, which also
Oppenheimer did
showed,
it. It showed false mutual impacts, or it just didn't
yes,
show any at all.
yes, it was personalities and all of that. So yeah, these are the things that immediately come to mind.
That's beautiful, Conrad. No, you very organically, as always, in our friendship and conversations, segued me to the next touch point in our conversation, which is we'll get into more of the in depth of this in our second pass in this pair audience. Like a spiral, we're gonna, as I've said before, revisit these pairs once again once we do one pass. You may see a lot on the slide that we won't get to, but what we will get to is Comrade Dwayne. Both the Chinese and the Vietnamese Marxist-Leninist materialist dialectics tradition says what our scientific body of knowledge does that formal logic and Western thinking does not do, Comrade, is that we also assign different ranks and positionalities to different causes. This touches on what you're saying. The Vietnamese say there are many different categories of reason. So when something happens, someone gets pregnant, someone drops something on the floor, when something breaks, when something ages, a relationship goes to shit, when a relationship changes, when I get hungry, when I lose hunger, right, by eating. There's always more than one cause. It's true. What the white man, Western imperialist world does is probably include the wrong causes, like Dwayne was saying, or artificially and unscientifically abstract out or separate out the multitude of a matrix, multi-layered relational system of causes that cause something or mutual impacts. Here's a really powerful way, I think, of being able to parse through what the materialist dialectics of the Vietnamese tradition. There's internal reasons, Comrade Dwayne, and there's external. There's indirect reasons and there's direct reasons. And when it comes to results or effects or changes produced by mutual impacts, there's primary and secondary. We can break that down. Internal reasons are the causes of changes or the sources of changes, transformation that come from internal factors or components within something. Two things mutually impacting within something. That's the internal reason. An external reason is a mutual impact between people that are outside of each other, that are not each other, that are not internal components in larger, even though that is relevant. Everything is inside the universe. Everything's part of a bigger system. Outside and inside are relative and diametric. We don't need to get into that. Indirect reasons for mutual impacts that have a lot of intervening, mediating, in between middleman, not to use gendered language, relationships and reasons and results between the seeding cause, mutual impact, and the final result in our frame of analysis. There's never a final result in diametric. When I broke my car and it caused my car to backfire, and that sound reverberated through my whole neighborhood in a 50-meter radius, and it caused some lady cooking for herself to drop her tea in an apartment complex and break her tea glass. I was the cause of that, but in this point of view, I was the indirect cause of that. I was the indirect reason why someone may have dropped their tea and broke it, because my car backfired because I failed to take care of it. The mutual impact between me and my car in that case, Comrade Dwayne, not direct. You can't. A lot of people wouldn't blame me if I let my car break down and I caused people to break their tea glasses in their apartment who heard the noise, right? But from this point of view, Comrade Dwayne, the mutual impact between me and my car indirectly led to the change of a lady dropping her teacup. So indirect reasons are reasons which are mutual impacts that have many intervening reasons and results between the final result. Direct reasons are the exact opposite. It's a cause that has nothing, relatively speaking, to our analysis. Because if you zoom in, everything's got intervening things. Like the mediating fields that quarks and electrons interact with. No time to get into that, right? You and me are not interacting directly. We're interacting with our computers, and our computers are interacting with each other. So from a certain point of view, me and Dwayne are the reason directly why we're transmitting knowledge to each other and progressing our friendship along by having yet another Sunday recording. We're directly interacting with each other. And we're directly causing ourselves to grow. And from another point of view, me and Dwayne are not directly interacting with each other. We're indirectly interacting with each other through the direct reasons of interacting with our computers, which interact with each other and then transmit information that allows us to have a mediated friendship for an hour. Understand? So direct reasons, Comrade Dwayne, are relative. But relative to our analysis, it's a mutual impact that has nothing in between it and the changer. Now, just finishing off these categorizations, and then I'll get you into the Chinese one after I hear your reflections on this. Primary results are the changes caused by a mutual impact between two things, you guys, that are direct, pulling on what I just used earlier. When I have a mutual impact with my toilet and my bladder is full, the change that results from that is, well, my toilet's full of something other than water, and I'm empty of my urine, right? So my threshold is not at the point where my body is giving me metabolic signals that I have to go to the bathroom once I've already interacted with my toilet. The change that I incurred as a result of interacting with my toilet is my bladder went from being full to empty. I'm a satisfied, urinarily speaking, in the positive feedback loop of hormonal signals of your body and its excretory system. I'm satisfied and in equilibrium now in a way that I wasn't because I touched my toilet and I used it in the way that I'm supposed to, right? That was the primary result. The primary result of me interacting with my toilet, Comrade Dwayne, is my bladder. Secondary results are indirect changes that are not usually one reason and result away from them. They're indirect, they're mediated. They have lots of in-between reasons and results too, that are often less predictable, a lot more wide-reaching. And like I said, they are always mediated by in-between relationships between a mutual impact and its change. So when I interacted with my toilet, the direct thing that happened as a result of that, Comrade Dwayne and audience, is that my bladder became. Something indirect might be my couch. This is gonna sound silly, you guys, but my couch's cushion got less compressed because I had to get up. The CO2 in my apartment reached higher levels because the act of respirating and mobilizing and metabolizing resources to move myself to the toilet to do my business used more of my metabolic resources. So I had to breathe more in my apartment and use up more of its oxygen and CO2. My neighbor got woken up by the fact that I used the toilet and it's 3 a.m. So it actually disturbed her and it caused her to be woken up. Not because I had to pee, but because what I did as a result of peeing had wide reaching ripples that caused other things to mutually impact. My neighbor getting disturbed, my CO2 levels in my apartment going up, my couch cushion becoming temporarily undepressed because I had to get my butt off of it and take my yellow ass to the bathroom to empty my bladder. Those are indirect results, comrade. All reasons and results infinitely chain out into infinity in time and space. We have to draw the line somewhere to have a useful analysis and get off our butts and actually do something at the end of the day. But this is useful, Comrade Dwayne, because this is showing there is always an internal and an external component to why things. There's always both. It's just what's useful for our analysis. There's always a direct way that mutual impacts affect changes and an indirect way. This is how capitalism, this is how racism and sexism and queerphobia and ableism. This is what a lot of normal people don't understand when we try to explain to them that Disney is Trojan horsing ideas into your brain, even you leftists, by getting you to basically suckle on the teat of imperial superstructural bullshit and turning you into a stormtrooper and a subject of capital empire. But through Mickey or through Luke Skywalker or through Rey, right? Through characters. So things happen indirectly in this world, especially in the past world. And things also happen directly. And the capitalist world does not want you to be able to differentiate inside and outside causes or direct and indirect results or reasons. Understand that when things interact, Comrade Dwayne, it will change things. It'll also change things far beyond that pair, like I told you with my toy example. What does this all make you think of first off of that?
At the heart of, and this is mentioned in the text, the Vietnamese text, that a resistance to change, to even the concept of change, is one of the things that's at the heart of fascist thinking. And this is why, no doubt, why, as Gabriel Rockhill instructs us in Who Paid the Pipers, one of the targets of the campaign to create like what we now call Western Marxism is the separation of dialectical method from the Marxist canon. I mean, I recall a couple of years ago, I was in a conversation with someone, and they could recite all sorts of texts. They could recite many, many texts, right, from the corpus of Marx's and Engels' writing, and even some
No brown
Lenin.
Marxists though. Only Lenin, but no
Only,
Cabral or
right, and not even really Lenin completely, right? You had to be selective because Lenin is quite dialectical, and what I noticed as I was interacting with this person was that they could recite, but they weren't. There was no indication that they were thinking in a lively way, or that they were applying. And what was missing, what is the thing they needed to apply? So if I say, hey, describe what's happening, say in Microsoft, they could recite various Marxist texts, but they couldn't.
They can't generalize the Marx method.
Precisely, they couldn't generalize the method, and so so they would just fall upon. They would fall upon recitation rather than thinking, and so what you mentioned brings to mind the difference between like a living. Well, I don't want to use that term because living Marxism was I think it was a Trotskyist group or something back in the day. but a living school of praxis, and this is also
they say it's an open science. It becomes a closed science if you don't know what the fuck Dwayne's talking about.
And this also brings to mind, I was reading someone's work, African sister who was talking about, she wrote a really lovely essay that I'll include in the show notes. And the title of the essay, roughly, because I'm not 100% remembering the title, but basically was that Marxism did not have to be imported to the Caribbean. What
are you talking about, Dr. Kim Miller? Shout to BAP. Shout to Dr. Kim
Miller. Yes.
That's our Caribbean
already there. And so the point...
Oh, yeah. It was proven there, bro.
Exactly. Was that it's not alien because what these Africans... They applied. They didn't simply, take a book as Holy Writ and recite from it in a town square. They said, what are our conditions? And how do we apply this method? And what can we add to a school of thought? Physics, medicine, and so forth.
Indigenous epistemologies and ontology.
Yes, these are schools of thought. These are approaches. These are science, and that's why in an earlier episode I asked you, and you gave a really marvelous explanation. What makes socialism scientific? And what you said was it was basically having a feedback loop between events, reality, and your approach and your thinking. That's
what your abstractions of them, or basically
exactly
have to be dialectical.
Has to be based upon science, like a scientific approach, which doesn't mean you don't need a lab coat, you don't need a giant lab. You just need to seek
truth from facts, as Chinese and Vietnamese.
Exactly, which is an endless process, because nature is...
And then, as opposed to what? Truth from one time only. I learned it and I'm done in a white man's time. I don't need to learn to wait because I already learned it. Nope, that's not how anything works. Nope.
Exactly. Nope. So that's what comes to mind immediately. Is the need for the importance of having, and the need for an approach, a technique, a praxis. People use these words, but they don't actually apply them. I might have mentioned this previously too, because it's one of my favorite topics, but Ben Burgess wrote some article for Jacobin about supply chains.
Analytical Marxism. Oh.
And in that essay, he was trying to talk about the supply chain involving bananas and making some sort of bizarre points. And I'm not going to link to this in the show notes because I don't want to waste your time, anybody's time. However, it was clear from reading that article in Jacobin, like with so many articles in Jacobin, that there was no actual material understanding and no application of tools to the method of understanding the supply chain of fruit from Latin America to North America. It was just a bunch of statements, right? And some facts, and then like Marx quotes. And this, you get this a lot in what's supposed to be leftist discourse, which is I'm asserting something. Now I'm going to quote from Marx. Now let me give you my closing statement. As opposed to let's wrestle with the material reality that's before us. This is one of the reasons why, this is one of the reasons why I think people who call themselves leftists often fail when it comes to the analysis of the tech industry, because, they're not, they have no understanding of the actual, well, the phrase that we used before we started recording was how the sausage is made. They don't see the blood on the floor, and so.
And they spit in the face of the people who made the sausage and are trying to tell them that's how.
Right.
It's not my fault it got made, bro. I did it. I'm telling you the truth.
Right.
This just doesn't line up with what you want the truth to be.
Right.
You're eating the sausage, bro. This is what you're eating.
We had to kill the pig, and then we had to do these other horrible things for you to enjoy that sausage. Oh no. Let me quote from the Grundis or something else, and I'll explain
Marx
to
said,
you.
No, do not listen to Dwayne Monroe 200 years from now when he talks. When did Marx ever tell you to fucking act like this? We're not Marxologists, like DJ Prashad said. That's reciting. That's dogmatism. We're not Marxologists. We are using Marx's method. Oh my God, this is an infantile disorder. Comrade, I don't want to stop you down on Western leftism because we're part of that. I mean, low key, we're not. You guys, this is an infantile thing that we need to grow out of. Ho Chi Minh, the Vietnamese and the Chinese and the Cubans and the Koreans and the Laotians and the Venezuelans and the Nicaraguans all struggle with this adequately. Even the Iranians. You need to understand this. You are not studying Marx to be a Marxologist. There are those. Don't do that. You can do that, and you can get a cushy job and never support Palestine. But what Dwayne is saying is to do what Lenin did. What did Lenin do? Marx and Engels, very briefly, they studied capitalism and the capitalist mode of production and its laws of motion. Lenin applied that theory of Marx and developed it to the question of statecraft and taking power. You need to do what Lenin did. What did Lenin do? He didn't even do what you should all do. He took state power by syncretizing the indigenous autochthonous conditions. Yes, Russians colonized indigenous people. I'm Asian. Those are my cousins. We don't need to get into that. But what we are getting into is that Lenin did what you need to do, which is not exactly what Lenin did. What he did was an approach of taking the Marx corpus, the critique of the capitalist mode of production, and he synthesized it with the problem of taking the statecraft civilizational machinery, a diverse group of people, masses, the peasantry, the proletariat, the intelligentsia that were allied, by getting them to accept the political program of self-emancipation. That was not in Marx. How you do that is going to look like Christianity and Islam. Oh, I'm sorry, atheist. No, I'm being completely serious. Cabral had to do this. I don't care if you hate Christianity. I don't care if you're not a Christian. Kwame Nkrumah said this. You got to deal with the social forces as they exist and how they've been historically inherited by your country. Mutual impacts and understanding changes is really important for this because it's important for understanding history. What was the mutual impacts that got my people to this? What are the changes that I can affect? And then just pulling back into what I was saying, comrade, it looks different. Sometimes it looks atheist. Sometimes it's going to look Islamic. Sometimes it may not use language like Marxism. Some places you need to get rid of the fucking Christianity there because it was implanted through relations of violent domination. Other times, the worst thing possible would be to do a wholesale attack and a rejection of all Christianity. Look at the liberation theological traditions of Marxism in Latin America and Nicaragua, for examples of what I'm saying. You can't do the same thing everywhere because the social nature and the social relational matrices are not the same everywhere. It depends on your history and your current and potential conditions. Lenin dealt with one set of conditions. Mao dealt with another. The Mongolian communists dealt with another. The Japanese communists dealt with yet another. The US and comrades deal with the third, fifth. And then, Comrade Dwayne, I'm famous for tangents. I'll cap this off with this, but I actually forgot something in my first points that is very relevant. I'm a decolonial Marxist-Leninist or a student of the site, which means my convictions, politically speaking, you guys, are I'm a settler on Turtle Island in Abya Yala. The only true socialist liberation, scientifically speaking, from capitalist imperialism on these lands that will ripple out to the whole world oppressed by the entity that we call our country is one that is centered on the nucleus of national liberation of the 574 plus indigenous socioeconomic formations or indigenous American Indian First Nations, Native American nations on these lands, and the complete and total scientific liberation of African people, Africa, and all new African diaspora and colonies and internally colonized nations under scientific socialism. Black liberation and Native American national liberation are the only way socialism will look in this sphere. Otherwise, it's just a fucking reform and it's liberal Zionism. It would just be like an Israel reforming itself. Okay, you guys? So when we're studying conditions, when we are interacting with the masses, when we are being revolutionary scientists, understanding how to use our position and align relational forces of the masses of society in such ways that overthrow and overcome and quality shift out of the current oppressive conditions we're in, these have to be taken into account. You cannot do what Lenin or Ho Chi Minh or Cabral did because they weren't settlers on a 574 plus complex of 574 Palestine and a very particular internal colonized with a possible plural because I don't know how many African nations there are. There might be one, there might be like 7. That's for you new Africans to figure out, right? I'm just your ally. Because of the Ma'afa, Lenin and Marx and Mao and Ho Chi Minh and Cabral never dealt with an internally colonized new African nation because of a Ma'afa, of a 500-year-long slow motion, as Dr. Jared Abal says, genocide and reduced and continual social death. That's what new Africans face. And complete domination of the means of production of the 574 plus indigenous nations on this land. None of these countries dealt with that. We do. So we have to take this into our Marxist-Leninist or revolutionary analysis. We have to take this into account. What Dwayne is saying is we have to do the Marxist method to your conditions. What Lenin said is you have to grapple with the question of power and the state problem in your condition. How that will look is going to be completely different in all time and space. And what I just gave you a sample of my political convictions is I don't claim to have the answers on everything. But the new African left and the Native American left, I sure as hell know do. So our socialist theory and theory of change, our version of Leninism, is going to have to be syncretized to and focused and centered on their analysis and their particular set of solutions to their particular set of problems that are everyone's problems. As Nick Estes said, shout out to the Red Nation, please go watch them and subscribe to them if you haven't. Water is not an Indian problem. It's an everyone problem. But I add on, you fucking use your power, whoever you are, Asian diaspora. I'm not talking to black people. You guys have your own revolutionary set of processes. I want to aid in. I don't want to be a mentor to her. I'm going to follow you guys. But if you're not African or native here in these lands, you guys, Dwayne is in Europe. He's in a different set of things, even though he can help from afar. You need to marshal all your resources to help them get their liberation. And that'll help all of you, all of us. So Comrade Dwayne, it's about the method. It's not about being a Marxologist. And then make it more concrete, Comrade Dwayne. Reason, result, secondary. It's all abstract. I told you last time, give me a subject. That means give me a thing in society, human nature, or thought, right? Let me do something a little different. Give me a situation. Not a thing, Comrade Dwayne, but an event or a set of processes in motion in your daily life. A goal. Just give me something and we'll reason result that for the audience.
You know, I mean, if you have employment of the traditional sort, you know, you're working in an office or working remotely, but you have to deal, you know, with the corporate structure. That's an everyday thing. That's an everyday environment, everyday situation that you have to navigate, that you have to think about. How are we applying this to navigating the power structures and the personalities and other factors that one encounters in dealing with what we call like a work life?
I like that. No, because that's really my life. So I don't know if Dwayne was giving me a softball there. Reason and results. Well, let's just analyze it first by demonstrating usage, and then we can kind of solve problems. So we won't solve problems first. We'll just kind of show the audience how to speak in Spanish now that we taught them the words. Then after that, we'll get to speaking actual sentences that make sense. I got to teach you guys language first. We got to speak it through. In a corporate environment where your sense of freedom and even your proletarian rights are indeed objectively limited, almost to the maximal degree, especially in imperial coercion in some places. I think a mutual impact that's really relevant is, I would say, boss reprimands and like uncomfortable meetings where you get scolded for not living up to numbers, and you, the employee's relationship to, we call it BAU in my business, but your metric. Let's analyze that. Let's abstract that out of this. So Dwayne said corporate world. Okay, I'll do you one better. Me, my work numbers, my metrics, the amount of orders I entered, the amount of phone calls I take, the amount of happy customers I got versus fucking stuff. And then my boss having a scolding. Let's analyze that. If I have a mutual impact with my numbers, where I have bad numbers, because I'm having a bad day or my tummy's bad, my family life is bad, right? And I don't have the energy to spend my work. I'm going to have a mutual impact with my numbers. Let's call that like my metric, right? Me having a mutual impact with my metric sheet in this scenario could be I'm having a bad time, so my numbers go down. You know, I'm interacting with my numbers. You know, I'm doing my job every day, and because of certain things outside of my relationship to my job or internal to my relationship to my body, I'm mutually impacting my number sheet in a way that's producing negative outcomes, right? I am using up my calories and time. That's my size mutual. My number sheet, because of the way I'm working or the modality I'm working in, is reflecting that. My number sheet got 39% good on it for me working for me. And I used up X amount of calories working 5 days a week to get that 39. That was the mutual that you guys see. And then as a result of that, a change could be my boss sees those numbers dropping and they say, okay, Alkmi, I want to have a talk. I'm going to have you come into my office on Friday, and for 45 minutes, I'm just going to lecture you about how you're not a very good worker. Better align with your values, yourself, society. The effect there was I got a talking to from my boss from a bunch of bullshit of a white person that's not qualified to lead me at all and doesn't know anything of what I'm doing, to speak to me as though I need to do better, even though I'm suffering from a multitude of things that they choose not to. Right. The result, the transformation, the change was I got talked to at my boss. Why did that happen, Alchemy? Did God make that happen? Did Dwayne Monroe from 14,000 miles away do that to you? Did Donald Trump do that to you? I mean, in an indirect way, he does this to all of us. Capitalism. Joe Biden too. No, I'm mutually impacted with my numbers. Me and my numbers interacting with each other caused a change to happen. One of the changes was my boss had to have a talk with me. That talk is going to lead to more mutual impacts. Like now I might be degraded and demoralized. I'm going to have mutual impacts with my timesheets additionally that are going to be even lower, reflective of my morale here. And then that might cause the change of me getting fired. Or that might cause the change of me getting motivated and say, I'm scared, or I'm inspired, or I'm stimulated, or I'm both. So let me mutually impact my numbers in a different way to lead to changes of the boss praising me, or leaving me the fuck alone, or not making me go into meetings I don't. There's always a chain of changes and mutual impacts between a pair of two things. That everything in this universe occurs through. That's the modality of how change occurs. Mutual impact leads to change. Really, that's called a contradiction. This is just one zoomed in scope of time, right? So, Comrade Dwayne, that was a mutual impact and a change. That was a reason and result. Let's break it down. The direct reason could be I mutually impacted my numbers and my boss scolded. That was the change that occurred. The indirect reason, Comrade, could be me and my wife are fighting at home, so it's causing me to have less energy for my work, which caused me to be changed in my interaction with my numbers. And that caused me to have bad numbers, and that caused my boss to have a scolding. Me and my wife fighting was a mutual impact that eventually led to my boss getting me scolded, even though it happened through the intermediary reason, the mediator of me interacting with my numbers, my metrics in that way. You see, Comrade Dwayne? You can zoom out. A primary result could be my boss had that talking to me, right? So the change could be I'm going to do better. A secondary result could be because Alchemy is doing better because his boss scared him or motivated him or both into doing better on his numbers. This is going to be goofy. Maybe it's because I'm drinking coffee, guys, so I apologize for the goofiness. Shout out to Cena. I feel like you sometimes, I'm going to go to the bathroom again. I could end up using the bathroom a lot more because my boss is working me harder, but I got motivated to work harder for her because she scolded me and said, I'm going to fire you if you do numbers like this again. So I'm saying, okay, yes, boss, right away. I'm just going to work harder and put all my needs to the side. Maybe that caused me to use the bathroom less. That's a secondary result. You see how, Comrade, every situation has many layers.
Yeah, I do. And I wanted to say something about this because this is the kind of analytical work that most of us already do, right? In a different context, it's called situational awareness, right? Like in a military context, it's called situational awareness. And so I like that. I like the way that you sort of laid that out.
I wasn't being too random, right, Comrade? I didn't want to be too goofy, but I don't want to bore people either.
No, I think you were laying it out. But what I want to stress here for folks is that, that really was a good walkthrough because like in a company environment, we have these instincts. Some of us are really good at it or better at than others of knowing like what the lay of the land is. And this is what we're talking about here is how these concepts, how these category pairs can be applied to real situations, both geopolitical but interpersonal, because if your response to the situation within the company is to ignore or to hope for the best or to simply be angry, right, without taking a look at your strategic situation.
You're giving up your agency, basically.
Precisely. Because you do have, even under a tyranny, which is what corporations are, there's some degree of agency. There's risk as well, because, of course, we have to work to eat under this system. but there's also the ability to understand the situation that you're in. And what I like about what you said is that many of us, particularly when you get more mature, and you have experience dealing with these situations, you can predict, you can sense, you can know, who to talk to within an organization, what's the status of things, that kind of thing. We have these pieces in place, but what Alkmi and I are talking about is how do you bring it together? This is a methodology that allows you to actually bring what you already have in many cases, the knowledge you already have, but to
Helps you
to
organize the knowledge you already
but
have.
to organize the knowledge, which is quite powerful, because then, which it doesn't always mean that you'll get your way, of course, but it does mean
No,
that you're
it
thinking.
clarifies.
It clarifies. You're not just reacting. You also have the ability to perhaps even make relatively accurate predictions of how things are going to go. I mean, for example, as a Black person operating in the US in company environments, over time, I mean, when I was quite young, I was very naive, but it didn't take long for me to be reschooled that I was Black operating in a supremacist situation, no matter how many smiles were thrown my way. I wrote an essay recently, a little essay about how I lost a job because the lack of benefit of the doubt and in a tech situation and a large corporation. And it clearly was racism, but that alone is inadequate to explain what happened. There was a series of events, a chain of reason result pair that had to do with national factors, historical factors, interpersonal factors, and so on. And I was able to predict, by the time this happened, I was in my mid 30s. I had enough experience. I was able to predict precisely how it was going to go, and I was correct, sadly. Um, but that I did not have these tools at that time. But I could have. But
You were
I could have
instinctually doing, acting
instinctually,
and thinking along the way that these tools align with.
precisely based upon my experience. So I want to encourage people as we go through this to say, "Oh, this isn't unrelated to me, and this is not above or beyond me. This is you already. You simply have to have it presented in a new way that allows you to systematize and to apply it, right? And training is always important as well. Now, at this point, I do have to say, because I'm looking at the timer, and we have like, as I told you, and I'm not I believe in full disclosure when we do, well, not full disclosure, but a lot of disclosure when we do these recordings. And my wife said, listen, you have an hour.
So Dwayne tricked me. I just want to say, I want to push back a little bit. Dwayne tricked me. We're 55 minutes in the recording, but here in my Turtle Island occupied home of Bakoje land, it's 9:39. So Dwayne tricked me. We have 20 minutes left for 5, comrade, because you made it vague. So you're blue balling me a little bit.
Well, there is
is it 20 or 5?
No,
What is it?
well, I'll say there's a greater power. There's another factor.
There's a greater, as we know.
A greater power. But
I'm
I
sorry
want to
for
stress
not
here.
being able to get through as much as we wanted.
No, it's fine, because the next time we will have more time, and we really, because as I go through the presentation, I see, the next pair from reason result is necessity accident, which I think we've
particular
covered.
general, comrade. We're going backwards.
Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Particular general.
Yeah.
And then we're done with them, and we'll go through them again.
Okay, that is perfect then, because then we'll be able to devote our entire time to a particular general. And we're also planning, I think, as I mentioned in the previous recording, we're also planning to do like a longer form. And audience, the challenge here is that I'm in one time zone and Alkmi's in another. And, so it's a bit of a challenge to find mutually good time, because it's evening for me and morning for him. But you know what? Even with these challenges, and they're minor compared to serious challenges, we still have managed to record 6, and we're recording more. So we inshallah indeed. So we are, I think, really building a nice corpus here. I'm not breaking my arm to pat us on the back, but audience, I want to encourage people, and I have heard from people who have been really happy that we're doing this, and who have said that it's helped them to understand and apply. And that's our goal. I also want to encourage people to in the comments, don't be shy about asking questions, because we're
Please.
perfectly happy to address them. And I think I need to also maybe set up a perhaps an email or something that we can use for this specifically, so people
Oh, yeah. Sure.
can ask questions.
I'd love to.
And then maybe in the future, we can do like a live stream, and also maybe have like a little bit of a study session with invite some other people. Once we've
100,000%. But one contradiction, because I'm more of the millennial than Dwayne is, even though Dwayne's young at heart. No, comrade, you do remember I brought this up to you. Full disclosure, I'll let the audience know too. I thought we can't do that until the privilege gets unlocked for us of being a certain channel size to be able to live stream, i.e., like it's a 400 subscriber threshold. Audience, you better help us get there. But comrade, Dwayne, what say you on this? I would love to live all of that, yes, but I thought we couldn't.
Well, we don't have to. We don't have to use YouTube.
Well, tell me more, please. In this brief time.
There are other platforms that we could use and
like
invite people
like,
to.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, like there's that, there's others that we can use, and we can just invite people to.
And you're saying we are not similarly restricted to having a certain subscriber minimum.
That's right. That's precisely right.
On Xiaohongshu and TikTok, you do though. So tell me about these comments. Like, where are these?
I also can host it on Proton Meet, right?
Proton has their own version of stream. Oh, yeah. Let's get our BLM chat. Let's get our comrades. Fuck yeah! Like I'm so down. Study session, all of that.
So there's definitely options for us, right? I can even just build a server and just do it ourselves. So
now, I don't want to ask Dwayne to give his surplus labor, but I mean, if you want to be dialectical, please. No, I'm totally down. Audience, please let us know if you'd like.
So you know what? With that out of the way, and these future plans, which hopefully occur because the internet cables aren't cut as a result of total war. But
that's that fucking German pipeline that no one knows who blew it up.
You know what, dude? One day we have to talk about that pipeline, because there is a Swedish scientist who has been telling people for a long time that was a nuke, and people are like, and this gets back to a conversation we were having privately about people not listening to technical advice on the left. I wrote an essay about this, just highlighting his work, but he's like, that was a nuke. And people are like, no, it's impossible. And he's like, well, no, it's not impossible. Why do you think it's impossible? You think that's just something that the U.S. wouldn't do?
Out of pocket. Look at what they did to the Navajo. Not even just the Japanese,
right?
Like Marshall Islanders.
Right. He's like, what are you talking about? But and anyway, I don't know how I had to get on that, but
because you're talking about the internet cables being cut, it's like it won't be just the pipeline. It's dangerous to be the enemy. It's even more dangerous to be the friend of the fucking big eagle. As we all know, as they said themselves.
So, having said all that, for Brother Alkmi and myself,
thank you for your time.
I bid everyone adieu, and please like and subscribe. I don't think I've ever said that. Like and subscribe, spread the word.
We in the game now.
By the way, in addition to this YouTube, I'm also posting these on Substack. I know that Substack has all kinds of issues, but so does YouTube. I am looking for alternatives as well, but I want to spread this as far as we possibly can, and so people have as many options as they possibly can. Well, with all that said, I bid everyone adieu, and thank you once
again. Free Palestine. Land back.
Free Palestine, indeed. Ciao, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Kamsahamnida. All right, comment.